19 years ago, back in year 2000, I made a permanent decision to what was, in fact, a temporary problem. And unfortunately, at the time, I couldn't seem to tell the difference between the baby and the feelings, and the baby got caught up in all of that and lost its life as a result. I'd been given some painkillers that day, and that night I took 16 of those pills. Smiled to myself as I went to sleep, thinking I wasn't going to wake up again. And unfortunately, or so I thought, unfortunately, I woke up the next day. So after the abortion, I just had a real hatred for children. I used to have thoughts about like kicking pregnant mothers in the stomach to kill what they had inside, and I even hated mothers, and I used to think people were only mums because they didn't want to get a real job and things like that. And I wasn't prepared for the grief and the regret and the pain that came, and it wasn't made known either. And I guess it's kind of a just disenfranchised grief, because it's not something that people kind of grieve publicly. It didn't actually fix the problems, it actually created a whole lot of problems for me. Internally, mentally and emotionally. I'm sure that if I had suicidal tendencies from abortion, that I won't be the only one, along with, you know, anxiety and feeling depressed and that sort of thing afterwards.
I think I allowed myself to believe that what they tell you, that it's a fetus and it's not a life and all of these things, so that you can emotionally detach yourself from what you're about to do, which is essentially killing a baby. The one thing I remember about all three of them was that everything was just like ticking boxes. It was like nobody genuinely cared about what I was about to do. To be able to abort a baby, even at 20 weeks, I don't think you understand the trauma that it leaves behind. The physical removal of a life that's exactly what it is. I know that there are women like me, more women like me, who sit in silence and shame and guilt and deal with what they've done quietly and on their own. Please consider us.
Last year we lost one of our babies.
Baby number 5. We thought it was all going well. We were just coming up to 20 weeks and I had a midwife appointment, and they tried to find the heartbeat, and she couldn't find the heartbeat. Then we began the process for him to be born. He was actually born on the Wednesday, which was the day that we turned 20 weeks. He was about as long from my palm to my finger, and then his little legs were tucked up.
I was just totally, overwhelmed by that.
Yeah, he had everything. He had little fingernails, toenails, he had eyebrows. You know, like he was completely this little tiny person. So I suppose as far as humanity goes, he was very much a human. He was just a tiny one that was starting. We did name him, yeah, legally. He's got a birth certificate. He's been named Levi, which actually means joined or attached, which sounds like a weird meaning, but for us it just felt really perfect for him, because it was like, even though he's not here with us, he's still part of us. That was really important, that he's still part of our family, even though he doesn't get to grow up down here on earth.
We should be ones to protect those that don't have a voice.
20 weeks, they did say that it's 90% he's Down syndrome. And then they give the option that, we can actually go through abortion. We can, given that, there's a lot of limitation, you're gonna have difficulties, looking after this child because of the limitation, not only health-wise, but also physical-wise. When they told that, it was just non-negotiable. for us, we didn't have to think about it. I mean, they had to tell us to go to a room next door. They'll give us all the time there is in the world, and we look at each other. My husband, we said we didn't need to think about it. This is our baby, this is our child. We're not gonna think any other way. It's gonna be birth. And now 5 years later, we look back and we know that every human deserves life. No matter how they get this earth, we just know that abortion is not an option. I think the true disability here is people who are inhuman. It's not the condition. It is actually a blessing in disguise. It's a journey that you alone will have to journey it through, like I did. And today I can honestly say I cannot imagine life without my son. It's all right to have disability in society. It makes people be more kinder, especially generation little kids growing up, be more empathetical, you know, and learning how to be human, to love each other.
I was conceived in 1974, December 1974, by a young mum. And, okay, I just need a minute. My mother was actually raped, and I guess I'm what society would call a rape baby. Excuse me. Oftentimes the pushback is, oh, but what about women that have been raped? The challenge that I face when I hear comments like that is like, should I even be alive? But I'm reconciled and grateful. Reconciled to the fact that I am alive, and that's okay. And yes, my conception didn't come about in a romantic, pretty way. I value that. I value life. I have just as much right to be alive as anybody else. The premise of aborting due to rape, you're basically saying I and women like me, children, you know, shouldn't be alive. And to be honest, I find that very arrogant. I don't believe that we should be deciding who lives and who dies. I find it very arrogant that someone would say to me, should have been aborted, Jackie. To anyone else that has been conceived in similar circumstances, you have every right to life, just as much as anyone else.